Don't let someone else's opinion become your reality. Stay afraid. But do it anyway. Let me begin by telling you a truth that has been forgotten by most. Your life will be shaped not by what others think of you, but by what you do with firm, definite purpose. No one ever became successful by waiting for a round of applause before taking the first step. And no man or woman ever changed their destiny by asking permission to begin. See, the average person spends their life begging for approval from family, from peers, from people they'll never meet, and from people whose lives are no more advanced than their own. They wait for someone else to recognize their worth, to grant them access, to give them a nod of agreement. And while they wait, time passes, dreams rot, purpose decays. But the achiever, the one who becomes master over circumstance, does not wait. They do not seek validation from those who have no vision. They act with unwavering belief in their own capacity, even when no one else believes. They mod their reality not with words, not with excuses, but with action, daily disciplined, determined action. It is unstable. It is based on opinion, and opinions change with the wind. One day they praise you, the next day they doubt you. If you allow that to shape your path, your life will zigzag from one failure to the next, not because you lack the power to succeed, but because you surrendered your power to the opinions of others. What builds empires is not applause. What builds wealth, legacy, and personal greatness is action. Not someday, not when it's convenient. Now. Too many individuals are slaves to hesitation. They are chained by indecision. Why? Because they're afraid someone might disapprove. They wait to be ready. They wait till it feels right. They wait until the world around them gives them the green light. Yes, we're done. But life doesn't operate that way. There is no green light. There is no ideal moment. The only signal you need is the one burning inside you, the spark. The vision, the definite chief aim. If you possess a goal, a dream, a purpose, then understand this. You have been given that dream not to fantasize about it, but to build it. And that dream can only be made real through the low bar of your hands, through the persistence of your will, through the absolute refusal to bow to public opinion. The most dangerous thing a person can do is postpone action while seeking approval, because approval is addictive. It teaches you to be liked, not to be great. It convinces you to please people rather than to pursue your mission. It steals your voice and replaces it with their noise. And that noise will drown out your potential if you allow it. But here's the law of success, written in the language of the great builders of the world. Definite purpose backed by action leads to progress. Approval without action leads to nowhere. The builder, the doer, the leader, they do not ask, will they like this? They ask, is this aligned with my mission? And if it is, they move, even if they're alone, even if they're mocked, even if they're mocked, even if the world tells them they're crazy. You must learn to walk forward without applause. You must become immune to the sting of criticism, because critics produce nothing. They build nothing. They contribute little. And yet their voices ring the loudest until you realize their words have no power unless you stop to listen. Action silences critics. Progress crushes opinion. Results rewrite history. You are not here to tiptoe through life, hoping to offend no one and please everyone. You are here to realize the power that was planted in you the moment you chose a purpose greater than yourself. That purpose is your authority. That vision is your compass. And that action, consistent, focused, and courageous, is your weapon. No matter how noble your dream, no matter how pure your intention, there will be opposition. There will be voices that try to pull you back into the average. Do not answer them. Do not explain yourself. Produce results. Let your life become the answer. And the moment you commit to that path, the moment you say, I no longer seek approval, I seek execution, you rise above the masses. You escape the gravity of mediocrity. You enter the realm of those who shape the world rather than merely live in it. So let others talk, let them doubt, let them hesitate. While they debate, you build. While they wait, you act. You act. While they seek permission, you forge forward. Unapologetic ally. Because in the end, the world remembers not the ones who were liked the most, but the ones who did the most. Reality is not given. It is constructed, and it is built not on applause, but on action. The greatest prison is not made of bricks and steel. It is not surrounded by guards or barbed wire. It lives in the mind, quietly built by the opinions of others and reinforced by the fear of judgment. It is the invisible cage that traps more dreams than failure ever could. It is the fear of what people will say. The worry of how others will see you, mock you, reject you, or misunderstand you. And that fear, more than any real danger, stops people from beginning. There is a silent force that controls countless lives. It doesn't scream or command, it whispers. It says they'll laugh at you. They'll say you're not good enough. You're going to embarrass yourself. These whispers echo louder than truth, louder than ambition, louder than potential. The sad truth is that most people never take the first step, not because they lack talent or ability, but be conditioned to seek permission. Permission to be different. Permission to be different. Permission to try. Permission to fail in public. But greatness does not ask for permission. It demands courage. People are born with possibility in their veins. They learn to crawl, walk, speak, fall, and get back up without caring what anyone thinks. A child does not stop trying to walk because someone laughs when they fall. But somewhere along the way as we grow, the world teaches us to fear. Fear failure. Fear shame. Fear judgment. And with that fear comes hesitation. Paralysis. Dreams get shelved. The goals get delayed. And lives are lived half-heartedly, choked by the opinions of those who have no stake in your destiny. Think about how many people sit on their potential every single day. They want to start a business, but they're afraid someone will say it's stupid. They want to speak their mind, but worry they'll be criticized. They want to change careers, but dread the opinions of family or friends, and so they do nothing. They trade their future for approval. They trade passion for comfort, all to avoid the sting of judgment. But here's the cruel irony. The people you're afraid of, those who you believe are watching you, judging your every move, are not even paying attention. They're too busy worrying about how you are judging them. This prison is self-imposed. It does not need a guard. It survives because people willingly hand over the keys. They lock themselves in by placing their value in the hands of others. But no one's opinion should ever outrank your own belief. No one lives your life but you, and no one will face your regrets but you. So why let them hold that much power? The fear of judgment thrives in silence and inaction. The longer you wait, the stronger it grows. But the moment you act, truly act, it begins to shrink. Because action is the enemy of fear. When you take a step forward, despite the inner doubt and outer noise, you begin to realize how little their opinion matters. You start to build proof that your dreams are real. You gather evidence that you are capable. You stop living for the approval of people who haven't dared to do half of what you're attempting. Fear of judgment is rooted in the need to belong. As humans, we are wired to seek connection, to fit in, but there is a line between belonging and bending. When you contort yourself to match the expectations of others, you disconnect from yourself. You become a stranger to your own dreams. You start living someone else's version of success. You become an actor in a play you never auditioned for. And at the end of the day, no applause will satisfy a soul that knows it played small. You must understand that judgment is unavoidable. Whether you rise or fall, people will talk. Whether you succeed or stumble, they will whisper. So if judgment is guaranteed, why not be judged for doing what you believe in? Why not be criticized while chasing something that matters to you? The cost of pleasing others is the death of your authenticity. And authenticity is the foundation of real fulfillment. The truth is, people project their own limitations onto you. When someone says you can't, what they often mean is I couldn't. When they say you shouldn't try, what they mean is I was too afraid to try. Do not inherit their fears. Do not absorb their doubts. Their opinion is a reflection of them, not you. You were not born to shrink into a version of yourself that fits into someone else's comfort zone. You were born to expand, to push boundaries, to create, to explore, to stand for something. But none of that is possible if you remain shackled by the fear of being judged. You will never rise while tiptoeing around the insecurities of others. You will never soar while trying to be invisible. Liberation begins when you decide that your voice matters more than their criticism. It begins when you act boldly, not because you're fearless, but because your mission is greater than your fear. The people who changed the world were not always the smartest or the most talented, but they were brave enough to ignore the crowd. They were willing to risk mockery to stay true to their vision. They understood that being misunderstood is the price of leadership. That ridicule is often the echo of impact. You don't need to wait for acceptance to be excellent. You don't need consensus to create something extraordinary. What you need is clarity of purpose and the courage to take the next step even if your voice shakes, even if no one claps, even if they laugh, because the laughter fades, the opinions change, but the life you build through fearless action that stays with you. Every time you move forward despite fear, you grow stronger. Every time you silence the critic with a decision, you reclaim your power. This is how the prison walls fall, not all at once, but brick by brick. One action, one choice, one moment of courage at a time. Fear of judgment is a thief. It steals time, joy, freedom, and identity. It turns kings into servants and creators into cowards. But once you see it for what it is, a shadow with no substance, you stop running from it. You walk through it. On the other side, you find not just the life you were meant to live, but the strength you always had. And the most beautiful part? Once you break free, you become a light for others. You show them what's possible. You give them permission to rise. Not by telling them to ignore judgment, but by showing them what it looks like to live beyond it. You are the only one who can define you. This truth is simple, yet it holds the weight of a lifetime's worth of freedom. Every label the world tries to put on you is powerless. How will you accept it? Every judgment, every opinion, every expectation, none of it becomes part of your reality unless you allow it in. You were born whole with a purpose, with a mind designed to think for itself and a heart built to lead its own way. But somewhere along the journey, people start handing out names, roles, boxes, and they expect you to climb in. The world will try to tell you who you are, what you should do, how far you can go. They will place limits on you based on their comfort, not your capability. You must understand that when someone tries to label you, they are speaking from their own understanding, not from truth. They do not see your entire story. They do not carry your vision, your fire, or your dreams. They are not qualified to name you. Yet people allow themselves to be defined by teachers who never saw their potential, by friends who never understood their pain, by strangers who never took the time to look deeper than the surface. They live lives shaped by voices that never earned the right to speak into their destiny. The world is full of borrowed identities. People who are called failures because they stumbled once. People who are called lazy because they move at a different rhythm. People who are called unworthy because someone else couldn't see their worth. These labels stick not because they are true, but because they are believed. When you begin to internalize the words of others, you make them your own. You repeat them in your mind until they become your inner voice. And that voice, if unchecked, becomes the architect of your future. It will build small dreams. It will design a limited life. It will whisper, stay where you are. You're not meant for more. But here's the power no one can take from you. The ability to decide who you are, regardless of what anyone else has said. You can reject every false label. You can walk away from every name that doesn't align with your truth. You can declare that you are not your past, not your mistakes, not your failures, not their judgment. You are the only one who can say, "It is who I choose to be." Choosing your own definition is not arrogance. It is responsibility. It is the responsibility to protect your identity from being shaped by those who do not understand your mission. It is the discipline to build your self-worth from within, not from the applause or opinions of others. When you define yourself, you stop chasing validation. You no longer need someone else's approval to feel valuable. You become solid, anchored in purpose, rooted in self-belief. And when you do that, the world begins to adjust. People start to treat you based on how you carry yourself, not how they once labeled you. They feel your conviction. They respect your certainty, because nothing commands respect more than a person who knows who they are and refuses to be moved by outside noise. This is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. Every morning, you must decide to be the author of your own identity. You must silence the voices that try to rewrite your story. You must remind yourself, and no one else gets to define me. Not anymore. And with that choice, you reclaim your power. You walk into the world no longer as a reflection of someone else's doubt, but as a living expression of your own belief. They may try to label you. Let them. Just don't wear it. Let their words fall like rain on armor. Let their opinions pass through you like smoke. What matters is not what they call you, but what you answer to. And you must only ever answer to the name you give yourself, the one rooted in strength, in truth, in purpose, because when you define yourself, you become unstoppable. Not because the world stops speaking, but because you stopped listening. Fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal to proceed with courage. It does not appear in your path to hold you back. It appears to point you toward the very thing you need to do. Fear is the companion of growth. the shadow of progress, the echo of your deepest desire asking to be realized. Most people misunderstand fear. They treat it as an alarm to retreat, as a reason to pause, as a warning that something is wrong. But fear often shows up not because you're in danger, but because you're on the verge of transformation. Fear only comes alive when you're about to step into unknown territory. It rises when you're standing at the edge of your comfort zone. And the greater the fear, the greater the breakthrough on the other side. The dream that scares you the most is usually the one that matters the most. But society conditions us to seek safety. We're taught to avoid risks, to play it safe, to follow the rules and stay small. We are told to silence our instincts and stick to the familiar. And so when fear arises, most people shrink. They step back. They say, oh, maybe I'm not ready, or maybe this is a sign to stop. But in reality, that fear is not a red light. It's a green one. Courage is not about the absence of fear. It's about moving forward while fear still lingers. Every great person you admire, every leader, every innovator, every world changer felt fear. But they walked with it. They acted anyway. They stepped forward not because they were fearless, but because they refused to be controlled by the feeling. The mind will try to convince you that fear means stop. But the soul knows that fear means go. It knows that on the other side of that fear is a version of you waiting to be born, a stronger, wiser, braver version of yourself that cannot emerge until you walk through the fire. Growth demands discomfort. It requires you to take steps that make your hands sweat and your heart race. It asks you to leap without seeing the full staircase. It calls you to move before the fear has faded, because it rarely does. The mistake people make is waiting for the fear to go away before they act.
That day never comes.
The fear only fades after you move, not before. The antidote to fear is action. Every step you take toward what scares you weakens its grip. Every time you confront it, you build new strength. You gather new proof that you are capable. And confidence is built not in safety, but in struggle. The moment you lean into fear, transforms. What once felt like a wall becomes a doorway. What felt like resistance becomes fuel. Understand? Fear is energy. It's your body alerting you that something important is at stake. And instead of fleeing, you must focus that energy. Direct it into discipline, into boldness, into decision. When you reframe fear as a signpost instead of a stop sign, your entire life changes. You no longer interpret the emotion as danger, but as direction. It tells you where to grow. It tells you what matters. It points to the very thing you were meant to face. Everyone answers it with act. That is what separates those who live a life of quiet frustration from those who rise into their greatness. The average person lets fear dictate their path. The uncommon person uses fear as their compass. They say, if it scares me, it's probably worth it. And they go forward, shaking, doubting, uncertain, but forward nonetheless. And the beauty of facing your fear is this. Once you do the thing you were afraid of, you realize it was never as powerful as you imagined. Most fear is imagined. It's a story your mind tells based on past pain or future worry. But stories can be rewritten. Real courage is not found in perfect timing or perfect conditions. It is found in imperfect moments where you choose to act anyway. To speak up even when your voice trembles, to show up even when you feel like running, to take the leap even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. And here's the truth. Your life will be measured not by how often you avoided fear, but by how often you conquered it. The size of your success is in direct proportion to the size of the fear you were willing to face. If you only do what feels safe, you will live a life half-lived. But if you learn to move with fear in your heart and courage in your soul, there is no limit to who you can become. The difference between who you are and who you want to be lies in the moments where fear says, don't and you say, oh, it's me. That choice is everything. It is the moment you reclaim your power, the moment you turn fear into fire. And once you learn to use fear as fuel, you are no longer a prisoner to it. You are its master. Opinions are cheap. Vision is priceless. Anyone can have an opinion. In fact, most do, and they're handed out freely, without effort, without understanding, and without consequence. But vision, that's rare, that's sacred. That comes from within, not from noise. The world is flooded with critics, commentators, and complainers. They speak loudly, but they risk little. They observe from the sidelines while doing nothing to build, nothing to change, nothing to lead. They are loud, but they are not lasting. Because at the end of the day, it's not opinions that shape the world, it's vision. Look around. Everything of value that exists, every bridge, every invention, every movement, every breakthrough was first seen in the mind of one who dared to believe in something others couldn't yet see. Visionaries do not wait for approval. They are not driven by applause. They are guided by an inner picture of what could be, even when others only see what is. And that is the mark of real power, to hold on to your vision while being surrounded by voices that try to drown it out. The world is quick to critique because it's easier to tear down than to build up. It costs nothing to point a finger. It costs everything to follow a dream. That is why so few do it. But you must understand, if your dream is worth anything, it will be misunderstood. It will be doubted. It will be questioned because it is new. Because it is new. Because it requires others to see beyond what is, and most are too afraid to look. Critics speak from limitation. Visionaries speak from imagination. And if you want to build something meaningful, you must choose imagination over imitation. You must learn to filter the noise and focus on the message within. That inner vision, the one that won't go away no matter how much you try to ignore it, is your compass. That idea that keeps pulling at your spirit, even when everyone around you says it's impossible, is the seed of your greatness. The opinions of others will always shift. What they laugh at today, they may praise tomorrow. What they call foolish now, they may later call genius. After the work is done, after the vision is proven, after the mountain is moved. So you cannot build your life around their changing winds. You must build it on the solid ground of your own belief. Vision is internal. It is deeply personal. It speaks in whispers, not shouts, and it must be protected, guarded, fed daily with discipline, clarity, and bold action. Many abandon their dreams not because they lack the potential to succeed, but because they gave too much weight to cheap opinions. They let someone who had never walked their path tell them where to go. They handed over their direction to someone who had no map. And in doing so, they silenced their own voice. But your vision doesn't need validation. It needs commitment. It needs relentless faith in the unseen. It needs your willingness to keep going even when the world doesn't understand what you're building. Understand this, opinions are often projection. When someone says you can't, they're usually revealing that they couldn't. When they mock your ambition, it's because your courage confronts their complacency. When they call your dream unrealistic, it's because they've stopped dreaming. And so their words have nothing to do with your potential and everything to do with their fear. You must not live your life according to the lens of those who have chosen safety over purpose. You must not let their comfort zone become your boundary. Their voices are loud, but they are not final. Only your vision holds that power. Only your decision to act despite resistance can transform imagination into reality. True visionaries are often lonely at first. They walk a path no one else sees. But eventually, that path becomes a road others follow. Every revolutionary idea began as a solitary thought, protected by someone brave enough to believe it mattered. And that is who you must be. You must become the guardian of your vision. You must move when it's unclear, speak when it's uncomfortable, build when it's uncertain, because in time, the world always catches up to the visionaries. The very people who doubted you will one day point to your success, as if they always believed. But by then, their opinion will no longer matter, because it wasn't their approval that brought your vision to life. It was your courage, your persistence, your unshakable faith. So listen closely to your inner voice. Feed your vision. Starve the noise. And remember, those who change the world are not the ones who listen to every opinion. They are the ones who follow the picture in their mind when no one else can see it yet. Persistence transforms doubt into belief. In the beginning, even the boldest dreams feel fragile. You start with excitement, but it's often accompanied by fear, uncertainty, and the loud, constant question, can I really do this? And in that vulnerable space, doubt tries to make its home. It creeps into your thoughts, whispers in your quiet moments, and waits for the first obstacle to prove itself right. But there is one force powerful enough to turn that doubt into unshakable belief. Persistence. Persistence is not glamorous. It's not loud. It doesn't always come with applause. It's built in the moments no one sees, when you keep going even though nothing is working yet. It is born in the hours when your faith is tested, when the results don't match the effort, when the voices around you say, you give. But each time you choose to continue, even by one small step, you are reshaping your mind. You are carving a new identity, one that no longer belongs to doubt, but to resilience. Confidence is not a trait you are born with. It is something you earn. And you earn it by acting in the face of fear. Every time you move forward when you're scared, you build evidence. Evidence that you are capable. Evidence that you can survive discomfort. Evidence that fear is not a wall, but a doorway. And the more you persist, the stronger that evidence becomes. Eventually, it drowns out the doubt. What once felt impossible starts to feel inevitable. Not because the path became easier, but because you became stronger. But the journey of persistence is not without resistance. Criticism will come. People will question your path. Some will laugh, some will doubt, and many will simply walk away. But in those moments, you must remember, critics don't define you. Your response to them does. When you persist in the face of criticism, something powerful happens. You stop living for approval and start living from purpose. You no longer seek validation because you found your conviction. Persistence builds power, not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that conquers self, the power to endure, to rise, to keep going when everything says stop. That inner strength is unshakable. It does not rely on motivation. It runs on discipline. It grows with every trial, every failure, every time you fall and choose to rise again. And there will be failures. There will be detours, disappointments, and moments where you question everything. But these are not signs to quit. They are the fires in which persistence is forged. Each failure is a lesson. Each setback is a sharpening stone. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Prepared for a life most will never taste because they gave up when it got hard. The truth is, most people never persist long enough to see what they're truly capable of. They stop at the first sign of pain, the first rejection, the first doubt. But those who endure, who keep showing up, keep learning, keep refining, unlock a level of confidence no book or speech can give. It comes from doing the hard things consistently, even when it feels like nothing is changing. Because change doesn't always show up in the beginning. It arrives silently in the background of every step forward, and then one day it becomes visible. One day you look back and realize you've become the person you once only hoped to be. The doubt that once controlled you now seems distant. The fear that once paralyzed you now fuels your action. You're not different because the world changed. You're different because you didn't quit when it was hard. Persistence is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It's the force that converts effort into excellence. It is the relentless decision to keep going, not just once, but every time it gets hard. And each time you persist, you rewrite your story. You tell your doubt that it has no place here. You tell your fear that it is not the author of your future. You prove to yourself that you are more than your circumstances. So when it's tough, keep going. When no one believes in you, keep going. When your own mind tries to talk you out of it, keep going. Because every step forward is a vote for your future. And in time, those small steps build momentum. And that momentum becomes belief, and that belief becomes power, the kind of power that can change everything. Reality is molded by action, not approval. Far too many people spend their lives waiting to be chosen, waiting to be validated, waiting for someone to tell them they're good enough before they begin. They hesitate, not because they lack ability, but because they've tied their self-worth to the opinions of others. They think they need permission to chase their dreams, as if greatness is something that must be granted. But life doesn't reward those who wait to be told they can move forward. It rewards those who move forward anyway. You must understand this. Nothing outside of you can define your reality unless you allow it. People can have opinions. They can doubt you, criticize you, question you. But none of that has power unless you stop and give it power. Approval feels good. Yes, it feels like a warm light on your face. But it's fleeting. It comes and goes. It changes with moods, trends, and personal bias. It is unstable ground to build your life on. If you allow the approval of others to dictate your path, you will always walk in circles, trapped between who you are and who they want you to be. But action is different. Action builds foundation. Action carves out a space for your vision to live. Action creates proof. And when you move with relentless conviction, when you choose to act on your beliefs, your dreams, your goals, regardless of who approves, you begin to shape a reality that is solid, lasting, and real. You are no longer hoping for change, you are creating it. Think of any meaningful achievement in history. It wasn't built on popular opinion. It was built on daring action. The world is not changed by those who seek applause. It is changed by those who are willing to move without it, to speak the truth, even when it is not received. to step forward even when no one walks beside them. That is the essence of conviction. It is the fuel that drives action, even in the absence of approval. You will never be universally accepted. And the longer you chase that illusion, the further you get from your own truth. Some people will never understand your vision because they are not meant to. They were not given the same inner fire. And that's okay. They don't need to see it. You do. And you need to believe in it enough to move. Not someday, not when it's safe, but now. Every step you take in alignment with your purpose becomes a brick in the foundation of your reality. Every time you act with intention, you strengthen your inner world. You prove to yourself that you don't need applause to be powerful. You don't need a round of approval to be right with your own soul. What you need is movement, not perfection, not permission, just movement, persistent, passionate, purposeful movement. The danger of waiting for approval is that the longer you wait, the quieter your inner voice becomes. The longer you delay action, the louder the doubt grows. But the moment you move, something changes. You shift from passive to active, from hopeful to intentional, from dreaming to building. Action transforms thoughts into results, energy into momentum, and belief into reality. Without it, nothing happens. With it, everything becomes possible. And action repeated with conviction creates identity. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who wants something, but as someone who is becoming something. And that shift in identity is what separates wishful thinkers from purposeful achievers. When you define your worth by what you do instead of what people say, you become unstoppable. Their silence no longer paralyzes you. Their disapproval no longer derails you. Because your reality is no longer tied to them. It's anchored in your own motion. There will be days when your progress feels invisible, when it seems like no one notices, when the results don't match the effort. And on those days, you'll be tempted to seek encouragement, applause, some kind of sign. But you must learn to keep going even then. You must learn to be furled by vision, not validation, because that is how leaders are built. That is how extraordinary lives are lived. Through the quiet, steady, unshakable commitment to action. Let others debate. Let them gossip. Let them doubt. You're not here to please them. Oh, you're here to build something that outlasts their opinions. And the only way to do that is to move with clarity, with discipline, with conviction so deep that nothing can stop you. Not criticism, not fear, not the absence of approval. The world honors results. But results are not the product of waiting. They are born of action. Your future is not shaped by what others think of you. It is shaped by what you do, again and again and again, no matter who's watching.